been a while since we've given some love to our GSR Lancer, so today we're going to give it a health check and a small performance upgrade. In our last video, we had this great airbox fabricated, and I wanted to take it back to the dyno just to do a bit of fine tuning. It made about another 20 horsepower, which is great. But not long after, when I'd parked the car, it was pushing a bit of corn on the ground, and not just a little bit, it was pushing like puddles. And so I started getting, is the head gasket getting a bit, how you going? Bought some head studs. But in between then, I ended up doing another radiator flush, and that seems to have fixed the problem. It seems to be fine now. But why don't we throw the head studs in anyway? Because later on down the track, if I change the turbo and we want to put a bit more power in the engine, you're going to kind of want to change these anyway. The engine at the moment is 100% stock. So today we're going to put a set of head studs in. This will help effectively seal the heads of the block. Before that, we're going to do a bit of a health check. We're going to do a leak down test and a compression test, and then after the head studs we'll do the same to make sure we haven't kind of buggered anything up. So this looks like a radiator cap, but there's one big difference. We can put pressure into this and basically simulate the water pressure when the engine's running and driving. And hopefully we don't have any leaks. Water pressure looks perfect. It hasn't moved a bit on the gauge after 10 minutes. We've pulled the plugs out, so now it's time for a comp test. Hopefully, fingers crossed, everything's good. It should be. Hasn't been comp tested for a few years, but to be honest, in reality, that's about 30 Ks for me. So
your cap's back on. We're going to do a comp test. So basically, it'll give us a bit of an understanding on how your engine's running per cylinder.
What numbers are you expecting if it's healthy?
On a good 4G, I usually see 160 to 180.
Yeah.
Let's see how they fare up.
Before we continue, this is Baz. He's the 4G guru. He's fixed pretty much 90% of the problems on this car. That's why it runs so well now. What, you've done timing belt, you've fixed up the loom, you've fixed a bunch of electrical problems on the car. Yeah. What else have you done over the years?
The resto.
Yeah, wait, exactly. Look at the engine bay compared to how it used to look. See, I've lost count because every time there's a problem, I go, Baz, sort this mess out.
Yeah,
but
so
Baz has got you've got a million spares for these things as well.
Plenty of Mitsus around the shop.
You fixed up all the oiling. It had the wrong oil filter housing on it. It was an A1, and it wasn't designed for this. And basically discovered the oil, only half the oil was going through the oil filter at the time. So all that got sorted. It's got a full Evo job on it now. All the sensors went on there, yeah.
So now we're back again, trying to get some more power out of it. That's how we go, Hopefully it doesn't blow up, but make sure it's healthy. After that, then you can have the confidence to take it back out to Sandown and give it a few more runs, because I think at this point you're a bit reluctant.
I think I'm more probably worried about the old five-speed boxer neutrals I've got back there.
Don't worry about that. Today, really just focusing on the engine and putting in those head studs. So let's get cracking. Next piece, comp test. Yep. Cylinder 1 is 200. Yep, 200. Cylinder 3, 200. Yeah, good. All 200.
This is a leak down tester, which means we put compressed air into each cylinder, just see if the head gasket's sealing okay and if there's no issues with the valves. And the reason we're doing it now is to check the values and also check them after we do the head studs. So it might reveal there's an issue now and that we haven't introduced it from changing the head studs.
All right, Geordie, so we're using a screwdriver before the leak down test. We're using a screwdriver to make sure that the cylinder that we're testing is up at top dead center, at the top of the cylinder. And we do that by just using a screwdriver and putting it down the spark plug well. And we rotate the crank by hand, visually just looking for that height and stopping there. And that will give us the best idea of when the cylinder's at compression. Yeah. And when everything's meant to be sealed. So now we'll be testing cylinder 1 first, but cylinder 1 and 4 share the same
firing order.
Yeah. All right, so cylinder 1, we've got the leak down tester on. You can hear the air sort of hissing. Yeah?
It's moved a bit.
It's moved slightly, and that's under 5%.
So it's acceptable though.
So it's good, yeah. 4 is great. So we'll move on to each of the other cylinders as we progress. So I'll need to turn the crank, screwdriver in the second one, same deal, repeat. Yeah, so very little leak down on cylinder 3.
Baz has just done a leak down test and a compression test. Compression was high. They were 200, 203, and they're all consistent, and the leak down was nothing. It was all under 5%, like 4 or 5%. So the best part about that is it's consistent.
So we're good to boost it up, give it about a 30 PSI of boost and you'll be right.
So next step is to install these ERP 2000 head studs. This is a very common upgrade on massive range of engines. Factory, these are an 11mm bolt, whereas these are a stud. You'll see the difference soon. An 11mm on a 7-bolt 4G engine, as opposed to what we've got here, is a Galant VR4, and these have the older, what's known as a 6-bolt engine, but one of the key differences among many, these run a factory 12mm head bolt. So a common upgrade is to actually upgrade an Evo engine to a 12mm VR4 head stud, 12mm head stud. Now, if you wanted to upgrade to a 12mm head stud, you do have to, there's machine work involved. That's just obviously a 12mm stud, sorry, can't go in an 11mm hole.
This is the 6-bolt. So many argue what's better, 6-bolt or 7-bolt. I'll give you a quick tour of how many 7-bolts I have in the shop versus 6 bolts. You probably remember this, was in my backyard. That's a 6-bolt. 6-bolt head, hypertune, all the fun in a GTO.
Hey, what is that?
This was actually something I was thinking of doing on the fullBOOST GSR. You know, just auto salon replica.
This is just out of a time capsule. This is like early 2000s, 2001,
Yeah.
maybe spec, that kind of era.
Auto salon, what's that say? Auto salon final battle competitor.
Final battle. Remember that?
This one's unfortunate, 4G93, so no 6-bolt. That's got a 6-bolt. So another conversion, 6-bolt. That's Carl's engine, or Carl's car.
I didn't actually know it had lamps on the dash.
So this one here is going to be a tribute to the auto salon days. And it's getting quite a big power upgrade as well.
We can play the fullBOOST DVD on the screen.
Engine bay's a debacle. He wants a full 4G93 forged build, big turbo. Continuing on with the 6 bolts, this is a 6-bolt VR4 motor with a 7-bolt head. So this one is a bit different, but
why have you got a 7-bolt head?
Just intake manifold and Evo sort of.
And it's all-wheel drive.
This is the all-wheel drive one.
It's got GSR rear end in it. Luke reckons he'll be trading his MR2 for this when it's ready.
I don't know if I can drive an MR2. Unless it's 4G converted. So this one here is a 4G93 1.8 litre. Probably closer to the 7-bolt because, you know, it's not as strong as a 6-bolt, but yeah, this one's a factory turbo all-wheel drive, just doing a bit of a tidy up on this one. So another 6-bolt, a Galant VR4, just doing another resto, 6-bolt resto. This one's come in from interstate, just helping a friend out, and I'm trying to get the engine bay looking schmick again. So nice little build, drives quite well. The last 6-bolt, another Galant. This one's getting a bit of a tidy up as well. So yeah, interstate again, helping another fellow member out of the community and getting the Galant driving nicely and looking really clean. Nearly done, just a bit of fab work and she'll be running again. But you can see 6 bolts over 7 bolts here. All right, Geordie, that's like, how many 6 bolts? 1, 2, 3, 4,
have you got
5, 6, 7.
Have you got one 7-bolt in here?
No.
Not one 7-bolt,
one.
what I mean.
I've got one in there, off a Cordia.
Hang on, the 6 bolts are harder to find, aren't they?
They're
Are
harder.
they less common though? Because they're less common. Oh, not really.
Nah, I reckon 6 bolts more common, honestly, because people have wrecked more VR4s than they would have, you know, Evos in Australia. The numbers would have been a bit high, but 6 bolts just seem to be.
So that's an RVR motor.
That's an RVR.
And they didn't make. I'm assuming they didn't make many of those in big numbers.
Yeah, well, a lot, RVRs came in 2 variants too.
Yeah.
Good ones and shitty ones. Next step, we're going to yank the rocker cover off and move on with the head stud swap. The factory head bolts in these engines are very easy to access. So some engines you've actually got to pull the cams out, but being a 4G, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10. You can pretty much do it as it is. So rocker cover off, unbolt these, nice and easy. What we'll be doing in this case is doing 1 by 1. So as we remove one, we reinstall head stud, and that doesn't compromise the head gasket seal. The final torque value for the 7 bolts is about 71 foot-pounds. I've just taken one of the bolts out. We'll be doing a 1-for-1 swap out, so we don't compromise the seal of the head gasket. Stud versus bolt. The stud's a lot more superior as a fastener. You know, this being a budget upgrade, we're just looking at really making the most out of a stock setup before we go the full forged route, if we go the full forged route. Up to him, up to his wallet, up to his missus.
There's a paint job to consider too.
ARP head studs. You got the Allen key on the inside.
Yep.
That's the top.
That's flat.
That's the bottom.
Can't screw that up.
All right.
Actually, you could.
You got your washer.
And when these go in, you just nip them up, don't you?
Yeah, the engine side. So you just finger tight.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Some you don't need to wrench on it. It's got the Allen key just to help you get a bit more, but generally finger tight.
Nine down, last one to go, finally. It's actually taken a little longer than I thought.
Especially after lunch. We should be having a nap.
Head studs are in, but we're just going to re-comp test just to make sure we haven't caused any issues. So we've got our base numbers which we can compare.
Yep. It's down to 100, Geordie. What have you done? Yep. 190. Yep. Yeah, they're all pretty much even.
The values were a little bit lower, 190, but taking into account the engine is pretty much like down to room temperature now. When we initially did it, it would have had a lot of temperature still in it, because I think it had only been turned off about 30, 40 minutes, or an hour or so, but it stays hot for a long time.
So we'll just follow up with the leak down test now, and confirm that the base numbers are matching the after numbers, and after that put it together and off you go.
One day I can get my engine bay done to this level. We've got snake skin effect. Oh God, I haven't seen that in 20 years. This is same airbox as mine going in. It's been fabbed up. I think he needs a fuse box cover.
The OG Turbo Smart.
Done another leak down. In fact, the numbers are actually a little bit lower. I think 2 or 3% for every cylinder. Consistent, but the main thing is we haven't done anything. There's nothing to indicate that we've caused a problem, and that's a good thing. Hopefully now we can probably put a bit more boost into the engine. I don't think the little TD05 is going to be making much more boost. It's on about 23 pounds on the street. It feels good. It makes a bit more whine than it used to, but it has an indicator. It's not using any oil. The car runs really well, so I might look at a turbo upgrade. Head studs are all in. I've counted 10 of the factory bolts are still over there, so that's a good sign. Baz, fire it up. Yep. Should be all right. The little battery is probably going to struggle a bit now because we've done 2 lots of comp tests. Oh, that's all right. Yeah. Cold start needs a little bit of adjustment.
I think she's good to go. You want me to wind the boost up now?
I don't think it'll make much more. Actually, people will argue, but this has still got a small exhaust on it.
Yeah.
So it probably could make a little bit more. It's still got a 2.5-inch exhaust kind of from firewall back.
I reckon next round of mods, exhaust, turbo, maybe cams. What do you reckon?
Gearbox, what? Just snowballs? I'm just happy it's on the road. There's been times when this car's went off the road and it just gets you get a bit over it having cars off the road.
If you haven't seen our collection of 90s retro merch yet, what are you doing? We have many different styles on offer in both tees and hoodies, so grab one today.
Yeah, the car's got a nice dose with this airbox. You can kind of just load it up and even at the lightest loads. But no, I wanted to say huge thanks for Baz for helping me out today. He always goes above and beyond, not just with me, but so many people he helps out. He's an absolute gentleman. I'd like to put a bit more power in this car. The engine, I think, will take it. But as you know, old 90s drivetrain, this is a pretty... The gearboxes aren't complete rubbish, but this doesn't even have LSDs. I'd like it to have a bit more grip out of corners. It does drive very well. The E85 gives it a little bit more torque. It cruises along nicely. It's not actually that loud. Without losing reliability, what do you guys think I should do to this car? I mean, I can just imagine the comments now.
So I'm going to crack open the first one, Geordie.
Sorry, madam. Too busy ordering lunch here.